It is funny because I'm like, go ahead, Jay.
No, I was just gonna say, Van, what you said at the end made me think, because I'm thinking, would Tupac even be alive? Like, would he even? Because let's say,
it might have pissed some people off politically.
You know what I'm saying? But even so, are we saying if he never got shot, what would he be doing? Because if he got shot, he ain't got no lung. He probably be in a wheelchair somewhere paralyzed. So what really would he be doing? I mean, not to be funny or nothing, but and I also feel like because of he was prolific, but I don't know Tupac in the way that y'all know Tupac. I just listen to Tupac. Although he was very intelligent, genius almost, he was immature in the environment and the people he hung around. So he would probably still either be locked up or dead. I don't even think he would make it.
And that speaks to my point. Is that young men in America are often immature. But the difference is that there are people who are in environments that their immaturity does not cost them their lives.
Exactly. Yeah.
But in our environment, we can't afford to learn from our mistakes. You see what I'm saying? And that's the thing about when people talk about him, well, they wanted to have him killed, and they always talk about the mysterious political factor and stuff. It's like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but that I don't want to take away from the fact that he died doing the same thing that so many other people did. And it's like, it's a shame that is what we end up being relegated to far too often. You know what I mean? So it's like, I get it. It bothers me more than the idea of some political, shadowy thing going on somewhere killing him, because it's like that's the thing that really shouldn't have to happen.
Yeah, because I couldn't even imagine what he would be doing. I just thought, well, he probably wouldn't even be alive. Like, that's the sad part. He probably would still not even either be locked up or dead. You know what I'm saying? I hate to have to think
I wish somebody would have said that, or you would have said that, Dana, because that's impactful. That is very impactful to say. I
mean, it's
I don't think he'd be alive today because of the life he led.
Yeah.
Outside of his genius, he just wasn't living a safe life.
Yeah.
Even though you could die drinking water, because you can. Right. But the truth is, you're right, Dana. Like, that's what young people who are out here right outside my door doing. Like, your favorite rapper is going to be dead, son.
I feel like unless he made if he made a full recovery,
a full 180,
I feel like somebody in his camp still would have retaliated and he would have went to jail for something. It still would have been something. I feel like he wouldn't even have had the chance to make that moment something that changed his life or changed his people he hung around or whatever. He would probably still be doing it and be angry, more angry.
Yeah.
Probably his mental health would have been insane, paranoid, PTSD. I don't want to say he would have been on pills or nothing, but I don't know.
Yeah, and all of that's very real. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and that's really the thing, is that the thing I always wish that people would do is that they would see him and see themselves, to be able to say that these are all the things that are encroaching on our existence, on the existence of so many young people, so many young black men especially, that we just take for granted. That they take for granted as just the way this is just the way it is. Like, well, no, there could be something else. Could we, what are we doing to create these environments that make someone think, well, this is just the way it is? Because it's not healthy.
The only person who I can think of who came from that crazy lifestyle, maybe Snoop and Ice Cube, like who is left? And that was in the streets, really in the streets.
That crazy.
And to be real with it, it's not even like Ice Cube was really in the streets like that. Like, I mean, he was in NWA, but Ice Cube was never in the streets like that. He'll even say that, like, his mom and dad.
I'm thinking more like a Scarface.
Scarface, who was trying to get into the political thing and running for council and all that. But yeah, like you said, man, Killer Mike is like that dude. He came through. I remember listening. His first upcoming stuff. He's talking. His first album talking about, forget sleeping in the trap. You better snort something and stay up. Like, he was in it. Then to be able to get into it and be able to talk to those kids now, like the clips you hear him telling all the cats he knows to sell dope. Like, look, do what you're gonna do, make your money, and then figure out a way to do right. He's just able to speak to him on a different level.
Yeah.
Dana, you make some great points. I'm gonna have to talk to you later.
50 Cent? I'm sorry. I'm just 50? Still thinking.
Well, 50 did turn it around, but he just still simple.
He created this
persona. it's like you got to compartmentalize, dude. It's like, all right, the stuff you do gets on my nerves, but I appreciate your business acumen, like the stuff you handle with business. But everything else that, like, it just keeps you from wanting to embrace him.
I think, and this, I was asked to be a guest on the show recently, and they were talking about the concept of cancel culture. Because everybody always wants to talk about cancel culture, and the thing I was pointing out to them, because they were talking about, well, do you think is they taking food out of these rappers' mouths or yada yada and this and that? And I'm like, one thing we have to acknowledge is that we don't owe everybody something, and 50 Cent isn't somebody I owe anybody, owe anything to as part of our community. I don't consider 50 Cent to be part of our community. He doesn't. I mean, he literally just does not care about people. So it's like. I don't hate him, and whatever happens, but I'm not, I don't see him.
Ain't that a result of his life? His environment?
I think it's definitely a result of his life.
To survive all around him.
And I can sympathize with that and still say that he is not. What I'm saying is, at the end of the day, if you don't care about my children, I have to make a choice between you and my children. And if I got to make that choice, I'm making that choice for my children, not for 50 Cent. I can sympathize with him and where he's been and why he is the way that he is, but I don't. And because we even talked about that on their shows, like, and to be perfectly honest, when we only extend that sympathy to men, we don't extend that sympathy to women. If you're Cardi B, you're not a product of your environment. You're a part of the problem. You know what I mean? It's like nobody even sees that when it's her. Oh, she out here robbing dudes or whatever. It's like, yeah, but those dudes were asking to be robbed. If you want to be perfectly honest, there was an exchange of goods and services, and she just decided to take more goods than the services she was willing to give.
Real deal.
So, but yeah. So it's a deep discussion. We gotta figure out how to do that discussion too.
Yeah, that's a good conversation.
You know what I was thinking before we go, for the young kids who they will listen to. Now it may not be our cup of tea, but out of the younger, like my kids' age, they listen to Lil Baby, the cat out of Atlanta.
Yeah,
like in which some of his stuff, like I don't listen to him, but I've heard some of the things, and it's like, all right, he don't sound like the normal kind of young rapper who I guess dudes my age would call, the young rappers. Like he actually, now it's in his own way, it's in their way. That's somebody who I felt like this younger generation will kind of get behind, because it's not going to look like what we think it's supposed to look like.
Definitely.
Like my parents and all that, Tupac didn't look like who they, you know what I'm saying? That's not what they would
He didn't look like Marvin Gaye.
Exactly. So I got to think outside of what I think a revolutionary or somebody could be or could look like. I got to start thinking, shoot, this is who my kids will follow. You know what I'm saying? Who they would listen to.
Y'all should have taped this.
Oh, I'm taping it. Yeah, I'm still. Yeah. I learned. Don't turn it off until we gone.
Yes.
Like this can be a whole behind the scenes conversation that we can put up. In fact, I probably will.
You probably
This is a good talk.
The Bigger Picture is such a good song by Lil Baby.
You know what I'm saying?
It
so
is
even
so thoughtful. And
a dude like that, you can tell he's thinking. He knows stuff is messed up, and he may not know how to do it, but he recognizes.
Sorry to that man. I can't name one song. I do not.
It's
sorry.
Sounds like he would be a mentee of Tupac.
Because he performed
one
it
of those type cats, like one of those young men who they may not have it all together, but I know, all right, some stuff got to change and it's got to be a little better. I got to start figuring something out. Yeah, it would just take somebody like that who,
So do y'all think Jay-Z, like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, y'all, we talking about what Tupac could have been. What is it that Jay-Z is missing that he is not that person? That mentor, that political person, that quote unquote out front active. Like, what is it about Jay-Z that makes him not that?
That's not his jam.
Illuminati.
Yeah,
he's Illuminati.
I mean,
serve two masters.
He can't.
Well, yeah, that part.
He make too much money.
But he does his thing on the low.
But he does get political though, or activist.
I just don't think he's. I don't know if people just gravitate to him like that. Like, as
he
much
didn't
as I love
start
Jay-Z,
that way. He grew into his activism and into his enlightenment about his blackness and all of those other things. These are like circa the last 10 years for Jay-Z, like to really be, in terms of being vocal. Now, I don't know what he knew, but in terms of being like really vocal about his blackness and his children's legacy and what he does to raise them and how to help people. And he shelled out a lot more money over the years to help people. You can say what you want about what he's done, who he's helping and how he's helping, but he has evolved into he's a silent partner. That's like his MO.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's not a talky. Tupac is like, girl, fight the power. And like, what he's thinking about. You don't know what Jay-Z's thinking about. And that's just how he wants it.
And I think one of the things that we always have to be mindful of with these types of discussions about who is an activist and who isn't an activist is that in our community, we always heap expectations on our celebrities that we would not put on ourselves.
Wow.
And that's an unfortunate thing because we produce these people. They come from our communities, and our communities far too often aren't about activism. So it's like, why is it that we want them to be something that we're not willing to be ourselves? Because at the end of the day, they are trying to sell to us. So we have to decide what do we really want a lot of the times. And I'm not trying to make excuses for any of them, but I'm just saying I don't think a lot of times we're as community minded enough as we need to be so that when we have a Tupac or a Lil Baby or whoever who comes along who's in his 20s, we can't expect them to know everything. We just need to let them be vocal and then produce an environment that allows what they have to offer to be beneficial in the way that it can be. So if you're Jay-Z and what you can do is financial, we need to make sure that the environment is conducive to that. And if you're somebody who's vocal, the environment is conducive to that. The people who are going to be on the ground, then it's good for that. But if the artist is out there being vocal and we're not putting our feet on the ground, then what are we doing to help that whole narrative in the first place? And often we're just not doing enough work.
It goes back to your point of ownership. At the end of the day, the censorship belongs to the body who produces the work. And if you're on a label, if you belong to a record label, then in actuality, the ownership isn't that artist. That artist lives in a country that's messed up and free speech is way out of control, right? Mm-hmm. So that machine that pushes that artist along is making money off of their missteps and making money off of their immaturity. But say Chuck D was the head of that label. You're not coming out doing, what are you doing? Like there would be a lot more ownership, controls, and Chuck D would still live in his community, so to speak, right? And he would be able to say, you can't put that out, not on my label, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's just that we just don't have the ownership to control our narrative. And our narrative is so multifaceted because of the country that we live in, the things that we have to endure, that reality hurts sometimes. And it is shooting them up and selling drugs and doing drugs. But at the end of the day, like, where are the controls? There are none, because these labels are making money off of our despair and off of our missteps. And they're not helping any of their strung out artists and any of their, depressed artists to make it out of this hole and speak truth to power to their listening audience, on top of the fact that their supportive audience doesn't look like us.